Hi there, my name is Krista, and I'm really honored and privileged to be able to share my story with you in the ways that God has been working in my life, particularly through the freedom movement. So basically, the story begins with my father being a minister. I grew up in the Christian church and really knew all the fundamentals in terms of, going to church every day and, hearing all those things that were, important in the foundation of my faith and who I am. But the reality is that it didn't really sink into my spirit in terms of what that was like to take those things and apply them into my heart and help me to know that God's love is transformational and can meet me in a lot of different ways. So what ended up happening was I knew how to put on a pretty good show at church, but I didn't know how to live it out. And so I also had this side of me that was pretty rambunctious and rebellious and really fought that whole thing. So I ended up living a really double life for really the majority of my early years and my teens and my 20s. And the way that ended up looking like was me basically just living on self-will, running amok, wanting to go out and live a big life full of partying. I mean, kind of your traditional sort of, prodigal son story, except for, I think it's more of a story of a lost spirit and a lost soul that didn't know, what the true benefit of a relationship with Christ was like. So, it got progressively worse. And, to be honest with you, it started off with, drinking and smoking pot. But before the time I was, 15 years old, I was really engaged in a full-blown addiction, from the time I got up until the time I went to bed. And I thought that was the answer to my problems, when in fact that just increased them really, and made my need for God really, really prevalent. But I didn't know how to put those two things together. So eventually that ended up with a couple of stints of homelessness, particularly, in Vegas and Hollywood, really just at that point running on survival skills and just to feed my addiction. That all basically came crashing in. I ended up pregnant. I ended up eventually losing my child and having to do the work to kind of rebuild myself, be honest for the first time in my life in order to get my child back. So that began an incredible journey for me. And the time that I ran across Carrie, at Rock Harbor in a nurture event, obviously I really connected with her story because it was really one of the first times I heard somebody being authentic about where they had been and what God had done for them. Now, I had a couple of years of sobriety under my belt, but the truth is that there was still a lot of stuff that I was really struggling with. I mean, trying to come off of basically the streets and fit into mainstream Christianity was a little jerky for me. It was tough. I had to come through the back door, like I like to say it, through a recovery ministry. And eventually God led me into, sitting in church and, all these things that I swore I would never do. But it was still really hard for me to connect with, kind of your mainstream Christian. It's kind of hard to be like, oh yeah, about your days in the streets, and all that. It's not really something that is really typical. So what ended up happening was I really connected with her story, and I ended up going to one of the events, kind of checking it out and really enjoying not only that authentic conversation that was happening in the walls of the church that I could really relate with, but also all the different ways that the freedom movement expressed itself through music and art and storytelling and creativity. It really felt like a very authentic experience for me. And beyond that, I think what really was an important piece for me was the care and the follow-up that they provided. So not only, do we have these big events, it was like, well, this is what this is what you can do. And I ended up taking a number of workshops that really addressed some of that core fear stuff that was making me run so far and for so long. The information that was given to me, and just that call that like Jesus's love could really truly fill that hole and that void inside of me that was reaching to fill other things, was really something that needed to be addressed. I mean, even though you might have like drug issues or eating issues or spending or anything else, I mean, really ultimately at the end of the day, you're trying to fill a God-sized hole with something else. And so to be able to really give the solution to what I needed, which was the love of God, was really important. And it's not so much just hearing one fantastic message or have this great night. It was all that follow-up that was like, yeah, let's sit down with a pen and a paper and let's talk through this stuff. Let's write it out. Let's be real. Let's sit in a group of women and be authentic with our pain and our struggle. And I did a 7-week course, which was really powerful. It really addressed some important things that I think not only myself, but a lot of women in the mainstream church really struggle with. Then it moved on to a fearless workshop, and then even another workshop, really dealing with anxiety. And I'm finding over the course of being a part of this movement and checking out what we're up to on events, and seeing the people that are showing up. To me, it's just this absolute confirmation that God is on the move, that God really wants people to be honest and authentic. That's what a real relationship is, right? Like if you and I were having a relationship and all I was doing was lying to you the whole time, like it wouldn't be like a really deep thing. And so when I see how back in Nurture there was 50 people that showed up to the first Freedom of Movement event, and now literally it fills hundreds, if not 1,000 women, flocking to hear this message. I know that the same message that I needed to hear in the church that I didn't hear, people are just starving for it. I believe the Holy Spirit is hungry for this movement, and I'm just so honored and privileged to be a part of it. So thank you so much for letting me share, and blessings to you on your day. Bye.